is HFK Presents 5 Minutes of History, and I'm your host, Terry Lynch, saying Happy New Year! Hey! I hope you enjoyed your holiday season and your new year, and are still living up to those resolutions. But I'm back to work, and my work now is celebrating birthdays. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Two very important birthdays to celebrate in January. The first, Benjamin Franklin, who was born on January 17th. If Benjamin Franklin were still alive, but he's not, he would be 305 years old. Ben could do a lot of things, but I don't think he could live to be 305 years old. One thing he's not known for that by many is that in the later days of his life, only days before he passed away, he wrote a letter to Congress promoting the abolishment of slavery and became known as one of the first abolitionists. That ties him to my other birthday boy, and that birthday boy is Owen Lovejoy, whose birthday is January 6th, 1811. Do your math. He'd be 200 years old this year. And the people of Princeton, Illinois are celebrating that birthday the whole year through. Why? Because that's where Owen Lovejoy lived the rest of his life. His homestead still exists there to this very day. I was honored to be invited down to celebrate part of that birthday celebration by giving a performance of my Underground Railroad show in Illinois. And I talked about Owen Lovejoy. Because I don't think you were there, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Lovejoy here. Lovejoy actually was born in Maine, along with his brother Elijah. Lovejoy traveled out to Alton, Illinois, when his brother set up shop down in Alton with a print shop. It was his second shop. His brother Elijah had a print shop in St. Louis prior to that, and he was distributing information on the horrendous tragedy of slavery and what it was doing to the people who were slaves. The people of Missouri and St. Louis didn't like this, and they destroyed two of his printers. As a matter of fact, he bought a third printing machine, but brought it to Alton, Illinois, where there was a hub of abolitionist activity. Also, it was a free state, not a slave state. Believe it or not, they destroyed that printer as well. So he bought a fourth printing machine, put it in a warehouse, was guaranteed he'd be able to publish all sorts of information on the horrors of slavery itself and the mistreatment of human beings. But a mob surrounded the warehouse and destroyed the printing machine, along with killing Elijah Lovejoy. The sad tragedy of this all was that Owen Lovejoy was there to witness his brother's death, and he vowed at his funeral that he would never forsake the cause sprinkled with his brother's death. That meant that Owen Lovejoy became part of the Underground Railroad movement and an abolitionist himself. He moved out of Alton and went up to Princeton, where he had a homestead, not far from what is now the Princeton Library. Well, Lovejoy spent his days there preaching as a minister for the congregation, along with running for office and eventually becoming a representative in the House of Representatives. He met a lot of people along the way, one of them being Abraham Lincoln. The Lincolns became dear friends of the Lovejoys along the way. You know what else happened along the way? Lovejoy's house became a stop on the Underground Railroad. Runaway slaves could hide behind a hidden door behind the dresser in Lovejoy's bedroom, and it led to a closet where they could stay until they were transported safely further on, many of them to Chicago and eventually into Canada. Lovejoy lived out his life preaching against the evils of slavery and inspired others to travel along with him on that mission to free the slaves and to help when the Civil War started, because Lovejoy himself joined that cause and became a colonel in the war itself. Sadly, he died by kidney and liver disease before the war was over. But he's buried out in Princeton, Illinois, in the cemetery. If you're ever going by, stop by several places there. It's lovely. The house is still there, intact as it was, and you can take a tour. If you want to know when, go on their website. They've got the hours listed. They vary day to day. And stop by the library. They have a lot of books on them there as well. It's only a few steps away, kitty corner, from the Lovejoy homestead itself. Well, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Lovejoy, and now I think I'm realizing I'm almost out of time. So, time? Speaking of time, do you know what time it is? It's trivia time! Oh! And today's trivia has to do with Lovejoy himself. The bit of trivia about Lovejoy I want to give to you today is about his friend Abraham Lincoln. Do you know who nominated Lincoln for president at the Republican convention in Chicago back in 1860? You've got it. Owen Lovejoy, minister from Princeton and abolitionist, although he didn't like being called an abolitionist. So there you have it. There's your trivia, a little bit more about my friend Owen. You know what? Do you hear that? Is it? Could it be? It might be. Oh, it is! Back from vacation himself, our town crier Horatio. Hey! Thank you so much, Horatio. I hope you enjoyed yourself and the weather wasn't too cold. Oh, well. And here's our question. This week's question comes from Bob in Connecticut, and it has to do with the other man I talked about today, Benjamin Franklin. The question is, why is Franklin sometimes seen wearing an old fur hat? Maybe you've seen these pictures of him. He looks like a lady's bonnet that he has upon his head. Well, Bob, I have to tell you, it has to do with the skin disease that Ben Franklin caught while he was traveling over to France by way of boat. He wore the hat to hide the skin disease because he had no hair on top of his head. So, believe it or not, this became a fashion statement. And all the people of France wanted the latest in clothing that was modeled by their hero and celebrity, Benjamin Franklin. Believe it or not, they thought that his backwoods frontier style was going to be the latest in haute couture, as they would say, of France. Franklin never wanted to miss an opportunity to make some money. He quickly wrote letters to his friends back in the colonies/states saying, get all the fur hats you can and all the simple woodsman shirts and pants and ship them over to me on the next ship. We'll split the profits. They made a killing off of it. That Ben, always thinking, even if he's hiding some sort of itch or rash upon his head. Well, that ends our time here today. Before I leave, I'd like to remind you of a few things and update you on how it's going. Number one, our books are still available. Even though the holiday's over, you can still get Nicholas Comes to America, the story of Santa Claus, or Mistakes Happen, a historical guide to overcoming adversity. Speaking of which, I'm going to give you a tease. Our next episode has something to do with that Mistakes Happens book, and I'll give you a clue. Can't we all just get along? Well, before our next episode, start thinking and realizing I've been thinking as well. We're writing a couple of new shows for this year, one of them celebrating the 150th anniversary of the Civil War. I'm going to be U.S. Grant himself. So if you need a grant, give us a call, send us an email. I'll be ready to go in just a few months. The other show we're writing is for the libraries and the reading themes that are going along, but for others as well. King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. So if you're looking for Arthur or if you're looking for Grant, you know where to go. HFKpresents.com. Send us a line, drop us a call. We'll get it all together for you. As always, dates are still available. We need short notice. If we're available, we can travel. And this doesn't just go for libraries and schools. You know about it too, you organizations and colleges. I'm always coming out there and enjoying spending time with you. So, on that note, I have to say, we are definitely running out of time. If you need more information, stop by our website or visit us online at www.hfkpresents.com. Until next time, this is HFK Presents 5 Minutes of History, and I'm your host, Terry Lynch, saying, watch out! History happens when you least expect it.